to the power of purpose. We know that all things work together for good. You might have been through darkness, you might have been through so many challenges in life, but we know that purpose can guide you to bring out the best that you are. So right now, I'm joined with a special guest. He's not a man that needs much introduction, has been in your screens, has been on your radios. It's no other than the great of the greatest motivational speaker. He's an author. Recently, has a new trade. He's also a farmer. And we are so glad at this point in time we need farmers to produce our own stuff. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Otto Kapuka. Welcome, sir.
Is this the time when we have to say?
Yeah, exactly. It's that time where you guys speak on stage and do the best that you can.
Thank you very much for having me.
There are those, most people basically as Namibians, we know who you are and what you do, but there might be those from different parts of the world who may not know exactly who is Otto Kapuka.
Yes, Otto Kapuka is a man by sex definition. That means, you know, there's a female and a male, so I'm a man, a male. Very humble guy. Yeah. Apparently you shouldn't say these things, but if you know that you are humble, you should be in good position to say it. Very humble guy, coming from a humble beginning. Okay. I'm not a village champion. Okay. I raised from a very beautiful village, which is better than many towns. Yeah. That's why it produces me. Cattle post. But most importantly, when it goes then into my professional life, as you have alluded earlier, that I'm a farmer, I'm a trainer. I train, I speak, I coach. I'm an author, and anything that has to do with human development or human capital development, that's the space where I operate from. So those are the things that I do. Other than that, I'm just a normal guy, right? Like a normal one.
Before we get to your accolades, the heights where you're now shining and you're on top of the world.
Am I shining?
Yes, you are.
Didn't know. Okay.
So before we get to that, you have produced a couple of books that I have right here with me. Yes.
Interesting that you have all of them, eh?
I have all of them. You can't. So we have Unleashing and Honoring Your Invisible Contract. Yes. We have that, and then you followed it up with
Everything is
War. Everything is War. Yes. Everything is War. Words, action, and results. Yes. And then now you have a third one. One Brick. Builder's Wisdom. Amazing. Before we get to this level, let's talk about your upbringing and the darkness you went through. Yes. Where did you grow up first? Like you say there, in the village?
Yes, I grew up in the village. My whole life is in the village. I only managed to get to the city.
What is the name of the village and the region?
The village is Oradia village. It's in Nomsati region. Okay. If you are aware of Utapi, from Utapi you drive further. If you know Ruakana, those are my hometowns. Yes. I only happened to see the city lights when I moved to Oshagati for secondary school and then eventually Windhoek. But how I grew up is that...
Secondary school, what grade was that?
It was grade 11 to grade 12. Yeah. And then I moved to Windhoek for NAMCO because I didn't do well. I didn't fail grade 12. I just didn't do well.
You didn't fail, but you just didn't
fail. I just didn't do well. Okay. Yeah, as expected, as for the requirements of the universities and other places, but otherwise my intelligence was still there, and I just didn't do well to meet their requirements. And so, but how I grew up in an extensive family. That means there are people who work for my parents, there are cousins, there are nephews and nieces, and then my parents. We grew up in a farming environment. If you see our Mahango field, you'll be scared as to how do we finish it in 2 weeks, because that's how hardworking my father is. And if something that I really took from my father is having a beautiful home, but also the ability to be able to provide for your parent, for your household. And that's where we grew up. We're like looking after cattle, looking after goats. Before you go to school, during the plowing season, you have to wake up around 1 in the morning. I think I've written it in one of my books that earlier in my life, only then I understood why my father could wake us up at 1, at 2, to go plow in the Mahangu field. I was like, what is this man thinking?
Yeah.
But now when you are professional, then you understand that, sometimes you have a report that is due, so you have to stay up until very late. So that was for me a preparation. So we looked after the kettles, we looked after the Mahangu field, and the basic things that happens in the village. And so that's, I wouldn't say really there darkness in my upbringing. The darkness came later on when I had made a decision to be an entrepreneur. That's a whole conversation on its own. But for me, it was fun. It was educational. There was time when you felt it was a punishment, which then later on you understand that it was not a punishment, as I have mentioned earlier. But it was also a very, very beautiful foundation of hard work, of dedication, of commitment to certain things in life that later on in your life you are going to find yourself perhaps here, and the foundation and how we are bringing you up now should be a reminder that if things go bad or if things go right, remain the person that you are. So that's the upbringing. Now obviously compounded with going to school, which for me, I was doing it for my parents, because clearly when you come back they have to ask you, what did you learn from school? If you don't pass, it's a whole drama in the house. So I was really doing it just for them.
Oh, great. You mentioned you had a privilege, a rare privilege, a diamond privilege that most people are lacking today. Somebody, I wrote an article some time back that Namibia might be becoming a fatherless nation.
Not might.
It is.
It is already.
Okay. Now, you had a diamond or gold privilege of growing up with your two parents, your father and your mother. And you just alluded or mentioned some of the best lessons you ever learned from your father about hard work. Are there other things you feel like which other children might not benefit of having both parents?
Yes. The whole thing that if your mother is not there, then your father is there. If your father is there, then your mother maybe is not there. There are things that you learn from your mother that you cannot learn from your father. There are things that you can learn from your father that you cannot learn from your mother. There are things that you can learn from both parents, from observation. Like you see the way my mother and my father are communicating. I see the way my father, for example, take care of the house. I see how the finances are being taken care around the household, that it's not necessarily, this one gets money from this, the other one gets money from that. It's sort of like there's sort of like a whole proper organizational house structure, and in that organizational house structure, how things are done, it's not compared to as somebody who is growing up without one of the parents. So there are things like finance, there are things like relationships. For example, you see how your mother loves your father, you see how your father loves your mother, you see how these people argue and eventually forgive each other, you see how they are taking care of the kids in the house together equally, not this one is my child or this one is a worker. Everybody is treated. If the meat is bought in the house, all of you are eating. If somebody is giving something, it's given to everybody equally. No such a thing, no, Anthony is my child, then you go give the things at the back, behind closed doors. If it's beating, it's beating. Discipline is offered to each and everyone. But also on top of that, the family unit system that is kept, and the vision you have spoken about, the purpose of bringing up children together and helping them to become responsible adults. Not adults, responsible adults.
Wow.
Meaning in your community, those individuals are responsible, not drunkards, not people who are just having sex left, right and center, and then they produce babies and they cannot even feed these babies. So there are so many things, even from a psychological perspective, where you understand that your both parents are there. And that's the beauty of everything, because now sometimes if a child doesn't grow up with both parents, sometimes they have to chip chop. Today they go visit there, they can visit here. It's too much. And also the discipline aspect, things that happens in this house, when the child goes to the other house, it's not the same. So the consistency of things when both parents are there, it's much more easier. And most of the kids, it's also where we have taken to say, for example, I've never seen my father with another woman.
Okay.
I've never. Even if he comes home at 9 in the evening, tomorrow you'll hear where he was and with who. And it will always be with his friends. So I've never seen that. So also for me, it's extremely difficult to have another woman when I have another woman.
Okay.
To have 5 other women like at the same time, it's not practical for me. Yeah. Because I've never seen it, I've never learned it, for example. So from a relationship point of view, I see that as a very good and beautiful model. But you can also see now from the single parenting point of view, this one today you date this one, tomorrow you date that one, the other day you date. But also there are people who are married still with both parents, but they are also doing the same. But I'm just saying the foundation is much more stronger when you have both parents.
Wonderful. You said quite very vital 2 aspects I wanted to bring in: morality and discipline.
Yes.
So how do you think both parents being present, what was the foundation of you talked a little bit about discipline, but I want us to go a little bit further. What was some of the things you clearly remember what your father would say, your mother would say about moral behavior and discipline? Because it seems to be lacking now. Parents are just giving up their kids to TV, DSTV and internet.
Not even used to say. Yes. Even now, it's still troublesome. It's their house. So in their house, there are rules. That's number one. In their house, there are rules. For example, if you go out in our house and you left people cooking and you go to the shebins, even my father knows, when you come back, you don't go to my mother's kitchen.
You can't go and ask just for food.
No, you ask from who. People are sleeping. You are disturbing people sleeping. That's already a clear for all of us. And we always knew that when you wake up the next day, it's trouble because you're going to work. And then you cannot work on an empty stomach. So, for example, one of the things is that in this house, we all eat dinner together, lunch together. If you go and you have left, she usually say, for example, my mom, she usually say, if you have left the pot, let the pot boil, finish boiling, and then you can go once you have eaten. If you go, when you come back, go straight to your room. That's it. Regardless of who you are, it's not negotiable. Now, these two people are totally different. My father is a meat person, meaning he touches on the body. My mom uses her words. My father will beat you, will find your dirty clothes and shoes laying around, and then pick them up and then put them in the fire. And he will tell you, I thought there is no owner. So they are dirtifying my house. So I'm burning them so that my house can be clean. If they had an owner, they would be in a room in order somewhere. So already I think you know me by now that how
I've been to your
house, a perfectionist and neat freak where it comes from. It comes from this gentleman because he's such a and people don't understand me. It's him, like straightforward, hardworking, and if you don't do what you're supposed to do, he beats you as a child. But also he talks about be careful. Like some of the things I hear him telling, for example, the people who are working in our house, sexual discipline, for example. You cannot just do things everywhere. Be careful about that person. So he's not saying, oh, maybe that person has HIV, or maybe that person is what. He will just say, be careful. Or he'll say, no, you cannot just work and you are just eating your money and you just go drink when the family doesn't have anything. Oh, these things, financial discipline. And then you go to my mother. My one thing that I have learned from my mother is that she tells you things, and when it comes, for example, to helping her, she will tell you, please go get me water. Not the system where you have to go to the well and get water. She will give you 5 minutes in her head. After 5 minutes, she stand up and then she will get her own water. Tomorrow when you need money, she's like, no, I don't help people who don't help me. And then she walks away. She doesn't beat you. She doesn't do anything. She disciplines you with indirect actions.
With the behavior to behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you behave like this is how I'm going to behave to you.
Yeah.
And then through the process, you get to understand her, and then you start learning that, oh, so if I steal sugar, I'm in trouble. I think I can only remember my mother only have beaten me once, and I think this is a culture and a tradition for every child.
Yeah.
To steal sugar from their from their parents' room. It's all of us. But then she will call you in the room. I think that's the only time that she had beaten me. She will call you in the room, and then she will beat you based on your behaviors, and then she talks that this is my expectation out of you. So there's in the Bible there's a rod, so that's my father, and then there's the words part. That's the discipline that I have grown up. Now imagine both works, both tactics works.
Yes.
It's like in the military, you just don't need one general. You need many other generals to help the soldiers to toughen up.
Yes.
So imagine if I had my mother, I'll probably be a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
Because she only talks, but she still provides everything.
Yes.
And then the other side, you work from morning until evening, every day,
now,
Monday to Sunday.
Let's get to a point where you now move to Windhoek, and then your behavior begins to change. You begin to get into alcohol and all the things that you couldn't get in because back in the village, your parents, they have a certain standard. Now
there's another standard from my mother, my father.
Yes.
When he used to drink, he didn't care. He would give alcohol to the kids.
Okay. That was another part about your father.
Yes. He would his logic was, even if I don't give them now,
they're still
going to drink anyway. Currently, I think I'm the only one in the last born that are still drinking alcohol among my siblings. The rest, they don't drink.
Yeah.
They don't even come closer. But when they were growing up, he was giving. So now the transition happens. First and foremost is that it's because I had to go to Oshagati. That's a whole new setup.
New environment.
I had to stay in someone's house. I'm not now in my parents' house anymore. You know, sometimes when you're in your parents' house, you can access Oshikundu or Shifima, anything, anytime and every time possible. Then you go to that place, and then the whole setup is different. And then you complete your grade 12, and then I think that's the structure that is there, that you finish in the village, you go to a certain town, and then you complete your grade 12, then you move to Windhoek, because by then most of the universities were here, but now you have universities, campuses almost everywhere. Yeah. So when I moved to Windhoek, then obviously new friends. New friends. New friends, staying with my brother and some of my sisters. I can remember the first 2 years I went to NAMCO to improve my subjects. And then when I started the first year of my degree, then I got into a group of 6 guys. We were 6. And one of the guys had a baki. Yeah.
It happened.
So we will attend our classes. After our classes, we take our taxi money, and then we put it together. And then one of the guy now had at the father's house there was a bar. So we go to this guy's house, and then we put the money together. We drink beer. Friday again, we go somewhere with some other friends. So it was a whole drinking habit, and I think it didn't really last for long. But the interesting part is that I only failed one module at UNAM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my whole degree, because remember, school was not really my thing, but it changed when I went to university. I don't know what happened, but I think I only failed one module. That was already at my degree level.
Yeah.
But the alcohol thing then started, and it had to stop immediately.
What was the turning point?
The turning point was I joined Zamanawe, and then I got trained to do HIV activations and activities and trainings on campus. And
what is Zamanawe?
So now it's a group that was on campus for advocating for HIV and any other social issues that students were facing. But it was also extended outside campus. And so you receive a training and then you become a peer educator. Then I found myself drinking alcohol. During the day you are addressing alcohol issues, and then during the evening you are drinking alcohol yourself. So for me it was sort of like double standards, and it was also an inconsistency in the message that I was giving. It was also the fact that I felt like I was saving people's life but also destroying my own life, because it doesn't make any sense me talking about alcohol but I'm the one who is drinking alcohol. So many realizations that I started thinking as the trainings then continued. And then there was a point when I said, you know what, let me sort of like give it a try, to sort of like stop completely and focus. Now also on top of that, I also felt I was wasting so much time on unnecessary things. And I decided, I now started seeing that the Otto, the farmer, the village guy, the guy who's always around his father and mother, is now growing into much more of something beneficial to society. And that's when I realized, you know what, there's time to reduce certain things so that I can focus on these peer education activities, but also on top of that, also make sure that I graduate.
So you begin to turn around because of this peer educational program. And then you graduated, this exciting part. But before you graduated, have you ever faced other peer pressures like any other teenagers and stuff?
Not really. Because remember, even when I was on campus, when I was in the hostel, this is very strange and many people don't know. I had my parents' pictures on the wall. Like as an appreciation. But because of the discipline that I got from home, when a woman comes in, I felt like my parents could see.
Wow. So
and so immediately I'm like, no.
Let's stand outside. Not inside here. Let's go outside the room.
Like it was extremely difficult even just to have sex. Because I can see them, but like not just see them, I can feel them.
You can even hear the words.
What are you about to do, Otto?
No.
So the peer pressure was extremely difficult, because even just to cut my hair, even now, I cannot cut my hair in a different, any other way. Because when I go home, when I go home, I have to do a lot of explanation. But it's also a beautiful thing, because me doing corporate trainings and being in front of people now, it has taught me how to have an orderly body. That when you stand in front of people don't question you like you are a churchy or something. So that peer pressure was difficult to get into, because the discipline at home is everywhere. Even in my fingertips, I can feel it. That I cannot do A, B, C, D, because what will my mother say? And also, interesting enough, if I misbehave, there's no way where I can go. This is my parents' house, so I might as well abide to their rules. But it's one thing that people don't understand is that the discipline is protection.
Discipline is protection.
Yes. Discipline is protection for your own life in the long run.
And I want to say this, Mr. Otto. A child that was never disciplined, their life as adult will never be disciplined.
Exactly.
Because the childhood discipline, where you're being disciplined as a child, as you grow, you develop your own discipline where you can limit yourself. There's nobody you're accountable to, but that culture of discipline, as you grow as an adult, isolated from your parents, you can still set up boundaries.
Exactly. Now, and you can navigate through life very easily.
And you can be successful in many things.
Exactly. As opposed to you become reckless. A successful personal life is a successful professional life. Hence you see the issue of corruption and all these things. Because we were taught not to touch people's things.
Yes. Don't take what doesn't belong to you.
Don't take what doesn't belong to you.
Now,
so it's very difficult for me to touch what doesn't belong to me.
Before we jump to the last part, I've always had assumptions like, because of all these discipline, at what age did you experience your first sex?
Do I know?
You can't remember the age how old you were.
Maybe 18, 19.
Is that?
But this, you know there's a professional sex, informal sex. The informal sex, I mean,
it's informal.
It's all of us. I think we fake these things, but let me be the real one for the first time. You have cousins, you have people around the house, you play, the next thing the capinas is in the vagina.
Those were the common things.
Those were the common things.
Yes.
Then I cannot really remember the first.
The real one where you made a decision.
Yeah, where I'm in, and I think, and trust me, it can be when I'm already here in Windhoek.
Okay, university level.
I have, for your own sake and everyone's interest, I have never had sex that side.
Okay.
It has always been probably this side.
Yeah.
I have never taken a woman in my father's house.
Good.
Never.
Okay.
And the only time the woman...
So what age were you, like 24, 25?
Maybe 21, 22.
21?
Sort of a thing.
How old were you when you came to Windhoek when you were stationed?
I think I was maybe 18, 19.
18, 19?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere there.
Not to say much, as we're coming to now your accolades, you have gone through this passage.
Yes.
And then you joined, how did you transit from a community developer, lifelong learning to adult education to now being a radio personality? How did that happen?
Life is a journey.
Yeah.
And on this journey many things happen. And when things happen, we discover ourselves, and clarity comes from engagement.
Yeah.
And by so I mean when you engage in many activities, you discover so much about yourself, and things becomes clear. That's why clarity comes from engagement. You discover so many things about life. You discover many things about yourself. And I think as I have engaged in Zamanawe, I had engaged in many activities. I have acted. I don't know why you don't have me in your movies yet.
We'll bring you in for the next one.
But as many of these things were happening, I started transitioning. It's not that I don't love farming, because now I'm living a farm and I'm loving it. But I started loving certain things, of speaking to people. It's amazing how you do a training and somebody comes to you and like, wow. It's amazing how you go on radio and you know. So then when we graduated, there was no employment. A friend and I went to a certain radio station. We wanted to do a talk show. Now that I felt I had so much information from the trainings that I have gotten. I just wanted to share information. So we went to a radio station. We spoke to a certain radio DJ. He put us on a trial. And the radio career kicked off from there. That was in 2012. I'm still on radio in 2021.
Yeah.
So the radio career kicked off.
From a radio career?
Yes.
Suddenly?
From a radio career, I think sometimes a seed is seen from a distance.
Okay, great.
That there's something coming out of there. So people, the need in the country by then and even now was relationship problems. And that's what we're addressing. And I think people have seen that there's something coming out there. There is something, there's a seed.
Yeah.
And so we developed, there was no employment. Even when we were on radio, it was volunteer. I'm still a volunteer and I'll be a volunteer for life. And then we pushed. My friend eventually got a job, so I remained on radio. Eventually I started getting paid on radio, but then another realization happens. I started getting invitation to speak at schools and whatnot. And I was like, oh, okay, if this is the case, then I might as well formalize my activities. Also, you start getting individual SMSs. Oh, can you please help me with what? Can you please... Like, people started talking. Yeah. And then when you see people talking, that means you're doing something. It could not be something great, but you are doing something. Yeah. So then I formalized, and then eventually I registered my consultancy. And then when we joined radio, there was this lady who kept on consistently saying, you guys must write books. You guys must write books. You guys must write books. And then I've really never put it in consideration up until the point where 2017 again the lady came back with the same message. And that's how the books developed. In 2017, that's when I started writing my Facebook. So that's sort of like another added advantage. Again, 2017, we all know economy went down a bit, so I went back home. The same farming process. Went back, I spoke to my father about the garden and whatnot, and there was no water, there was no one to help me with the money to start and borehole, buy pipes and whatnot. Eventually my parents managed to drill a borehole for me, and then every single cent I was getting either from books or anywhere else, then I was taking it to the garden. Now the garden is also flourishing, and so that's how my things started to develop. It was not a thing, oh boom, Otto Kapuka, I was given $1 million from certain investors, no. I have worked, and if you read my books, part of my story is also there, how I almost committed suicide. Only a best friend, she's late now, who discovered that, but no man, this guy is always on Facebook, but for the whole week he's nowhere to do. I was locked up in the room, there's no food.
So you motivational speaker, do you go through depression?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I wrote it in my books. And I one thing that I wrote in the Facebook.
I thought when people look up to you as an encourager, now you're going through depression.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I've done extremely well with my life is that I have never faked anything, because I don't believe in fake it until you make it. I believe in being real until you make it. If you don't have food, you don't have food. If there's no money to do something, there's no. If you have look at artists, for example, actors and actresses, they're celebrities that people think are celebrities.
Yes.
When tough time comes, it doesn't say, no, you are a celebrity, we bypass you. No, in fact, it goes straight to them.
You're the first one.
Because they have to put up a public image. I, for myself, I decided never ever to put up a public image, but to remain the person that I am. If I'm going to drink Oshukundo, I'll drink Oshukundo. If I'm eating Kapana, I'm eating Kapana.
Yes.
If you think I'm high there, that is your problem.
Yeah.
Me, I think I'm a humble person, a human being who one day will die and will be naked, and the maggot will eat me. Okay. So there's no need for me to be faking things and jewelries and no, because I don't have that money.
Yes.
So that's how I always encourage people that sometimes people don't explain how their life unfolded, but I have explained my life how it unfolded because I have worked hard.
Yes.
And the little money that I have, the achievements that I have, it's not because I was wheelbarrowed into the process. I have worked myself hard into the process. When I was getting paid, when I was not getting paid, when I was given less, when I was given more. I always appreciated that, and I just worked.
Wow. Now, there you have it. This is an author of honoring and unleashing and honoring your invisible contract. Everything is war. You gotta fight. You need results. And then one brick, builder's wisdom. Now you have these books. You can contact Mr. Otto. Mr. Otto, what will be your last words to a young man listening out there, a young woman? They are struggling. They need to move forward, and there are so many.
I'm putting it very simple.
Yes.
Overthinking and sometimes listening to too many experts have killed a lot of dreams.
Okay.
My thing is, stand up, take a 5 cent, make a 10 cent.
Wow.
Take a 10 cent, make a 20 cent. Let that grow into a $10, $100, and then take the $100, take it back where you took a 10 cent. Let the 10 cent be producing to 500. So what I'm saying is, start small with a bigger vision, with a bigger picture of your life, and then continue building small by small, step by step. Good. If you can run, run. If you can walk, walk. If you can crawl, crawl. But don't stop.
Keep moving.
Keep moving.
There you have it on the power of purpose. Now, the most important thing that I got from this discussion is that for those of you who are parents, if you have one child right now, you're married, unmarried, you're a girlfriend, you're a boyfriend, you're a father, you're a mother, you are married or unmarried, train up a child in the way he should grow. When he grows, he will not depart from it. There might be things that may divert them. Discipline and morality. Discipline and morality can take your children very far. You learn from Mr. Otto. Now, the parents are not here, but because of discipline, he is disciplined to sit down hours and hours to write research. And he's disciplined. Now he's a farmer producing. Some of us have already eaten some of his product. And you should go out on Facebook, follow him. There will be a lot of stories coming out of, he's starting a new show from Art Consultants. Is it Art?
Arts Master.
Arts Master Consultants. So there will be other stuff Mr. Otto will be bringing to you. So follow up on Facebook, find out more on the power of purpose. We are coming to an end, and it has been a pleasure to share inspirational story of Mr. Otto. So until then, stay focused and be disciplined. You can become the best that you desire to be. Never let anyone stop you. So we know that all things work together. Your purpose will bring you to an alignment. Hang around the best people that can guide you, can mentor you. Until then, I'm Anton NM. This is the power of purpose.